I think people are coming to the realization that these tools are very complementary and supportive, but you still need human beings to make decisions, to think creatively, to come up with the brilliance of what humans are really good at. And I just believe that the number of people in these roles will actually increase. What I tell my daughters is that there is plenty and plenty and plenty more to be innovated on within manufacturing. But through that innovation, you can have an extraordinarily high impact on society, because you're not just creating something for someone to buy, you're creating innovation that will lower the barrier for someone to access something, to provide joy, to provide function, to provide, in life sciences, something life-saving. It's no longer $1 million a dose, it's $10 a dose.
Yeah.
And it's that type of world in which we need way, way, way more people to be able to innovate in that space to get us to that future.
The greatest migration is underway. Everything from technology to ecology, there are shifts that are happening that are changing every facet of our lives. I'm excited to bring you conversations with leaders and entrepreneurs who are on the front lines of that change. It's the kind of change that matters. Hi, my name is Alfa Demmellash. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Rising Tide Capital. And for the past 21 years, we've been transforming lives and communities through entrepreneurship. Welcome to this first part of a multi-episode session with Angelo Stracquatanio, CEO and co-founder of Apprentice.io. We cover a range of topics, and I'm excited to be able to have pieces of this conversation across time so we can digest and think about the future of tech, entrepreneurship, and work with Angelo.
Today's special guest is Angelo Stracquatanio, co-founder and CEO of Apprentice.io, the first intelligent software platform for the life sciences. A pioneer in pharmaceutical technology and an advocate for community-based entrepreneurship, Angelo shares how his journey began, one that is grounded in innovation, perseverance, and a mission to transform how life-changing medicines are made. This conversation invites reflection on purpose, growth, and the impact that emerges when technology, education, and community come together. Joined by host Alfa Demmellash, we explore the early chapters of Angelo's mission-driven entrepreneurship and the foundations that shaped his path.
Angelo, I am so excited that we get to have this conversation. It's been, since
15 years.
15 years we've known each other. Yeah, we were both in kindergarten, basically. And I want to just start with an introduction of how we met, your story, how you ended up at Rising Tide Capital, and get into how you came to be the co-founder and CEO of Apprentice.io. So much exciting stuff to cover here. Go ahead.
Yeah, coming here, I was reflecting on the drive over because it has been a 15-year journey. And 15 years is a long time. And I've seen, through those years an evolution, obviously, in the business, where we celebrate our 10-year anniversary back in December now, which is really extraordinary. But I was thinking about what actually led to me getting introduced to Rising Tide and kind of how this whole thing blossomed all these years later. And, 15 years ago, not just 15 years ago, but 2 years prior to that, I had started my first company. I was somewhat fresh out of school. I graduated during the great financial crisis in 2008. Undergrad with a degree in finance, by the way.
Okay.
And suffice to say, it wasn't the best time in the world to be graduating with a degree in finance during the great financial crisis. And so, I did start working, and I had this idea, as a new grad would, where I was like, man, I would really love it if someone could go and pick up my groceries or get delivery from these restaurants that I haven't gotten delivery from, or would pick up my laundry or something. And, obviously I wanted everything to be done for me if I could press a magical button. So I had this idea. It was called My Errands Online. And it's really funny looking back 17 years later, that effectively that's what became Uber Eats, Postmate, Grubhub, and everything else. And so I like to think
DoorDash.
all of the above. I like to think I was ahead of myself at the time, the idea-wise. But I was completely lacking and failed in execution because I didn't know how to run a business. Even though I had graduated a degree technically from business school, I didn't know what it meant to start a business, to run a business, to hire people, to go outside of my very small apartment here in Jersey City and do something.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to my mom literally about this 15, 16 years ago now. And she saw an article in the newspaper and she said, hey, Angelo, you should go look at this thing called Rising Tide. It was here in town in Jersey City where I'm born and raised. Coincidentally now, this is where our headquarters of Apprentice is, just in a much, much, much nicer office than where I started. But that's
Wait, so here's one thing, which is I had a lot of friends who'd majored in finance, but none of them were thinking about technology or like, so what is your, like, why did tech come into your life and not just like going to work on Wall Street, or like what's your relationship with tech?
So it's really funny because there's two parts to the story. There's what makes me me, where growing up I just always loved playing with Legos and Connects. I loved building things. And it's funny now, I see it in my daughter who's 6. She does the same thing. She just has this innate like drive to create, whether it's art, whether it's, you know, assembling different things into some cool new idea she had, but whatever it is, there was this innate drive to build, to create, to design, to just create things into the world, as simple as that.
Okay.
But then there was the practicality piece of it, which was, you know, I went to finance, into a career in finance, mostly because growing up in Jersey City, you look across the river at Wall Street, and you have these dreams, you have these aspirations, and you say, hey, you know, man, as a kid in Jersey City, and for those of you that know Jersey City now, by the way, it is not what it was 20, 25 years ago. The city has gone through a major transformation. And so 20, 25 years ago, looking over Wall Street, it just...
It was like the future, basically.
Exactly.
Like that's like, where the money was.
That's where everything seemed to be. And so it just was a natural progression for me at the time. Then the great financial crisis happens, and I take a job in finance, funny enough, in Jersey City, and everything seems to come back to Jersey City for me. But they had a need for someone to write code because they needed to automate a few things on the team. And you know, I was a new grad, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. Let me raise my hand and give it a try. And it was at that moment where, you know, I bought a book. I still have it. It was Visual Basic for beginners. and I taught myself how to write very simple programs, you know, in that programming language at the time. But I fell in love. I absolutely fell in love. And all of a sudden, my whole world clicked because it reminded me of playing with Legos and Connects as a kid. It allowed me to be creative. It allowed me to build things. And so all of a sudden, I saw...
So you didn't study programming in school?
No, not at all.
Wow.
Not at all.
Okay, so self-taught.
Fully self-taught. And, you know, looking back, I'm actually glad it worked out the way that it did because I didn't move into the industry because, you know, I wanted to make money or anything. It was pure passion. It was, I really like this. This is enjoyable to me. I want to do more of it. And so the application for me at the time was, hey, let me go start a business. Because I couldn't get hired. I didn't have enough experience. I didn't have credibility. I didn't have a degree. You know, at the time, this whole non-degree thing in software engineering wasn't really popular, where people who maybe there weren't any of these coding academies. There was none of this. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just go create. And so I had my idea for running errands and picking up groceries. And so I built it. I built the platform, I built the web app, I built the mobile app, I built an automated, this is, looking back, it's kind of crazy. You text in your order, and I wrote a very, 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 what really shouldn't be called an AI, but basically what feels like now a large language model, where it would give you a response back. It would say, hi, Angelo, thanks for your order. I'll go pick up your cucumbers, see you in a couple hours. And it was very text and conversation driven. And so, you know, it's just kind of interesting to see that I was right on the idea, I was right on the tech, but I was awful on execution. And so from that experience, I needed to learn how to actually run a business. And so that's come back to my mom again. She's like, hey, go talk to these folks over at Rising Tide. And so
And what
signed
happened
up
when
and-
you showed up to the first Community Business Academy? And
So the first Community Business
you
Academy.
have to get accepted.
Yeah, we have to go through the
Like
application.
I remember making all the phone calls.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I showed up and I was nervous, right? Because I'd had this business idea. It wasn't going very well. I was starting to feel a bit insecure. I was starting to feel like maybe I'm not cut out for this. You have all these emotions as an entrepreneur, and a lot of it, unfortunately, is doubt. And battling past the doubt and dealing with the doubt is really like not only fundamental to what comes after it, but it's just part of the job. I mean, I'm 15 years in now, and it's very different, and yet I still have to deal with these and contend with these feelings, even though the business is in a very, very different place than, say, I started 15 years ago. So I guess the Community Business Academy. It was in the basement of the Capital One building, and by the way, this building is beautiful.
Yeah.
You go in and it's
like super old.
Oh, it's a turn of the century building. You have this beautiful
Bank
marble.
vault.
You have a bank vault, and so already you walk into a space that is interesting and it's unique, and you're surrounded by energy because you have other entrepreneurs then that are with you.
Yeah.
And it's all shapes and sizes of entrepreneurs. You have solopreneurs, which are creating, products that they want to have as a home business, and they want dignity in their lives, and they want to just help out their community. To me, trying to do this whole tech crazy thing, to other very successful entrepreneurs. People who had 40 to 50 person businesses already that were trying to figure out, how do I take it to the next step, to the next level? So this diversity of ideas, stages, people, backgrounds, you name it, it was enthralling at the time. And then we had a teacher who I saw here on the way upstairs to the podcast, Jay, who helped me all of a sudden demystify what it meant to not only have an idea of a business, not only to build tech, but to create a framework for what a business actually is. How can I, as an entrepreneur, birth this thing into being, but deal with real things? Like, how do I deal with accounting and marketing and hiring and firing? And how do I, think about planning? How do I think about forecasting? How do I think about, product market fit? How do I bring all these things together? And it was that framework, that initial playbook that Jay helped me understand, that all these years later, I am still using.
Yes, I love that.
There's been a big evolution since that time, but there's so many things that I remember from that class that I still think about, even this morning. I remember thinking about when Jay was teaching us about marketing and kind of the process around, how do you think about what message do you want to say? How does that provide value to the customer, and what would make them interested in you versus someone else? I was dealing with that this morning. And those fundamentals, I think that's the thing that I take away from that experience, was that a base of fundamental understanding of how to run a business was set. And that's now carried with me through my whole career and adult life.
And part of what I was so excited about when you applied even to get in was, for us, we wanted to create the conditions, the room where entrepreneurs are walking from all walks of life, some with experience and others who are just brand new to it and are coming with a lot of firepower and commitment. That was really like the one thing that we were checking in on, was like, are you really committed? Are you really on fire? Because otherwise you're taking a seat from somebody who's really wanting that. But also we wanted it to be on nights and weekends, which a lot of, there are other programs around, even on university campuses, but they weren't necessarily designed with the working entrepreneur in mind, right? And we didn't want you to have to go to like the 32nd floor of, even so when we partnered with Capital One, it's like they're giving us one of their, prime locations in Jersey City, and it had character. And you could just walk right off, the street, and with easy access, to transportation. So all of those pieces. And then when you said yes, it validated for us that, we didn't want just like a community business academy for just women, a community business academy for just this socioeconomic group. We wanted the diversity of thoughts and ideas that come when you bring, adults from all walks of life and put them together with a lot of unknowns and simulations and games to get people to warm up and really show up. And so I was like, yes, we've got somebody who's got a tech idea, but isn't necessarily coming with a lot of the baggage of what it means to be like a tech entrepreneur. And back then it was like, the Mark Zuckerbergs and it's like '03, the class of 2003, we were, part of that class. And there's the sense of like, oh, you had to be like super smart programmer who dropped out of school and is wearing a hoodie, and you're like a different kind of a human animal. Yeah. And we're trying to say, no, we found one. He's got a pulse. And you came in with such a human first, want to solve problems, open-hearted, and the fact that you are willing to like sit in that room itself and learn and and have that beginner's mindset was just such a huge kind of like this person. And I'm so excited that you've built all of these things, but also curious, I think, on that point, like what has stayed true from that time when you were in that space with your classmates? By the way, also like building apps for them.
That's right. Yeah, that was the second business idea.
Yes.
That directly came from that room because, and I can kind of draw a straight line from that room until now. And what has stayed true, because initially it was this idea where I was going to go deliver stuff for lazy millennials like myself. That's basically what it was, and it just didn't work out because I just couldn't get the execution right at the time. But I was in a room of people who, to your point, we were sharing these ideas. We are discussing our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations for ourselves, our families, our communities, the world, right? And the common thread that I saw was that a lot of these entrepreneurs didn't know or have access to tech. And so I had this next idea, and I literally named it perfectly in correlation with this vision, which was Main Street Apps. Yes. I want to create a place where people can go and design their own websites, mobile apps, whatever, for their business, and only charge $29.99 a month. Yes. Like a very, very low price, which, the business worked because we had, I think, close to a couple thousand applications and sites that had been developed. Amazing. The challenge was financially it was making it very tough for me to continue to,
build all these and while also
while trying to survive and pay for rent and everything else too. And so I learned a lot through that experience on, again, running a business. But at least when I got off the ground, I proved some product market fit. But there was this belief that, hey, if I can empower others, they can have an impact on their community. If they can have an impact on their community, it was ultimately good for me too, because I live in Jersey City. I'm really a big believer in this, not only this town, but this state and our country. And I felt that if you can be really helpful at a local level, it can have a really big impact on a macro level. Yeah. And so that was my next incarnation. But like I said, I didn't make any money from it, so I had to come up with another idea.
It did have a cool impact. I remember
it did, though.
Our local food co-op,
That's right.
Like all of your classmates were coming out with their apps built out. It made them instantaneously like the coolest cohort of the Community Business Academy. We're like, wow, okay, this is amazing.
Well, and what's funny is you fast forward 15 years later, and we all take this for granted now. You now go to these websites that do the same thing for you. They might even charge less than $29.99 a month, which I still don't know how they have a business. But the takeaway is that idea too was a touch ahead, and I just couldn't make the economics work. But the impact was there, and so this corollary continued, and then I had a lull where I had a real job for a while as a software engineer, naturally, and then I met my wife, and she was the one that helped really inspire what is now Apprentice.io, because she works in life sciences. So let me tell you a little bit about what Apprentice is, and then I'll go back to the story, because without the context, it's kind of hard. Yep. So Apprentice, we built out a software platform for life science manufacturing. What does that mean? That means these drug companies that you often think of when you hear pharmaceutical companies, it's often like negative. It's like, oh, these evil people charging all this money for all these drugs. In
or
my
just
world,
unfathomable. There's
or you just don't know what it is, or it's opaque, or whatever it is. And that hasn't been my experience over the last decade. Instead, we are working with people in manufacturing or in clinical trials or in process development. And we are the software that powers the manufacturing process such that they can, for example, take a personalized medicine, which right now takes upwards of 100 days to create and get a personalized medicine for you back in the hospital room. And they are creating a gene therapy unique to you and your genes because they want to not just treat a disease, they want to cure a disease. And right now, we're not just treating people, we're treating, or I should say I treat my customers like they're one of ours, but partnering with our customers, they are treating kids. And this is having an impact on kids who have these really awful diseases that these gene therapies can help solve. So
How new is this?
This is about half a decade to a decade old. The first commercially approved therapies only happened about a little over a year ago. And we are powering half of those commercially approved therapies. The point, though, is that the manufacturing process is so wildly complicated. The amount of human effort that goes into it, the amount of complexity that goes in, you have to do that not just for one batch, but you have to do that across every patient. So it's not like when people think of manufacturing, they think of, Tesla facility, stamping out a Model 3 over and over and over again. In my world, this is all personalized manufacturing. But not just personalized manufacturing, it's biologics, meaning these drugs are grown and biology is messy, really, really messy. Cells always don't do what you want them to do. And so having control around that process, having the whole team of people working on it and be coordinated, follow a very structured set of things, and to produce a result that is not just correct, but is safe and trusted and important and impactful for the patient. That's where our software does. Our software runs the whole manufacturing process. We orchestrate everything that's happening on the shop floor. It's just that our shop floor looks different. We don't have a bunch of robots. We don't have a bunch of, assembly lines. In life sciences, it's just a very different space. So
I have a side question. This is for the science geeks. Biology versus chemistry. Yeah, I hear a little bit of that debate going on from time to time. So when you say biologics, there are some people who's like, which is going to win? Is it chemistry or is it biology? But aside even from that debate, just to bring it down to a level where everyday people can understand, when you say biology, is that, and life sciences, are you talking about vitamins versus aspirin? How could someone wrap their mind around what life sciences versus maybe, chemistry or drug production of a different kind?
So typically when most people come in contact with pharma broadly, they get sick, they go to the doctor gives them some type of prescribed medicine. There's two types that people are most familiar with. There's pills, which are chemistry based. They're actually called small molecule. Why? Because the molecule itself can actually permeate through the cell wall and tell the cell what to do, et cetera. And then there's biologics. Think of this as like the flu vaccine that everyone gets every year. You get an injection. And it's called parenteral, but it's an injection. That's biologics. These are cells, typically antibodies, specifically monoclonal antibodies, but that's too deep. But just think of it as, the way that drug is produced is from living cells. These living cells, they are basically taught, I'm trying to simplify, they get taught to produce this antibody and they multiply over time and then they express the antibody, but that antibody is the drug product. And that's what then ultimately gets injected into your arm to help your body fight off or prevent, in this case, the flu.
What kind of other illnesses would fall under?
Oh my gosh, all different types. So you talk about everything from cancer therapeutics. One of the very popular ones out there is called Keytruda from Merck, New Jersey company. And this has had a huge impact on quality of life for lung cancer patients, excuse me. Conversely, you have things that we work on, everything from different vaccines all the way up to now these new GLP-1s, the weight loss drugs. These are also kind of in that class or in that category. Not exactly, but within that general kind of biology world versus pills, which is chemistry driven,
Yeah.
which is very different type of not only manufacturing process but end drug product. Anyway, the takeaway is that to make this stuff is really, really hard, extraordinarily complicated, and you have this other factor.
And the stakes are really high.
They're really
life
high.
and death.
Because the issue is that when you deal with biology, if you lose a batch, you're not just losing product, and there's obviously a financial impact for these companies, but you're losing time. Because they're not just like stamping out a door in a facility every day. Oh, I lost a door, I created a new door. There's a batch of drugs that gets made, and it takes sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. And depending on the scale, if you lose a batch, especially later stage, you're not just losing money, you're losing time. And you can say like, oh, well, it's just time, no big deal. But right now there's global shortages for many, many, many different therapeutics out there, many.
Wow.
And so when we say there's an impact financially, there's an impact to time, what you're really saying is there's an impact to the patient.
Yeah.
And so manufacturing is so fundamentally critical to not only have a thriving drug supply chain, but to ensure that the patients actually get the drugs that they need.
Yeah.
And right now, so much of that process is driven by paper, where you have these 200-page paper binders, and you have these operators who are extraordinarily gifted and skilled and educated, flipping through these 200-page paper binders. And my wife, who comes from this world, she wasn't an operator per se, but she was helping to run one of the plants here, of course, in New Jersey, and at a biologics facility here out in the suburbs. And, I was coming back to the founding story now. At the time, I was this very naive software engineering husband listening to my wife talk about how these extraordinarily talented, educated, hardworking people are following a wildly complex manufacturing process on a 200-page paper binder.
Wow. Yeah.
And people may say like, wait, what do you mean 200-page paper binder? Yes, there's not a lot of robots everywhere. There's not some extreme amount of automation that all of a sudden is doing 99% of the work. You still have a human performing a lot of different tasks, making decisions, performing calculations, moving material, interfacing, interacting with equipment, and trying to keep those cells happy so they multiply over time and they eventually create a drug product.
Yeah.
And so that whole process, unfortunately, because of the complexity, oftentimes when it's run on paper, results in either what's called a deviation, meaning you deviated from the process and that's a mistake. That mistake doesn't always lead to a failed batch, but oftentimes it does. Or you just straight up lose a batch, and that's bad too. And so the whole point is, 10 years ago now, I was having a conversation with my wife, naive software engineering husband, and I said,
but seeing a real problem.
I saw a problem and I said, honey, I think I can go fix it.
This kind of reminds me of the meetings we used to have around how to make the process that local entrepreneurs, as they're starting up, and you are discovering just like how complex some of just even local regulations are, like and zoning, and there's so many rules, and sometimes you don't even know that the rules are there. And then I remember being like, Main Street Gov app, you remember that?
Of course.
And they were like, but then there's so, like when you have so much that is either not digitized, or that there's just not like clean databases that you can link up with, then it's very difficult. You can have the tech, you can have the process, but if the data isn't there in a digitized and clean way, then you know, if it's not organized, then you can't do anything with it. And we kind of like tabled Main Street Gov as like an even less of a profitable engagement for you. We're in the nonprofit sector. We're like, okay, maybe we can raise money to make this happen. But so it just reminds me a little bit of that, you know, seeing complexity, and you saw a problem, and it's in life sciences, and you're like, hey, why not bring, you know, that problem, solver, entrepreneur. So did she say yes? Yeah, come on in, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go build it. And so we went on quite a journey. Fast forwarding a bit to the end a little bit, I mean, we've now raised over $200 million in venture capital, which is a lot of money. But not only that, it's from some of the most prominent VCs out there. The business has grown quite a bit.
Very proud.
Thank you. But it's the impact that the company has had. Because, you know, when I look at these last 10 years, we have the drugs that we're working on now, which to me is the future of medicine. It is personalized. it is on an individual patient basis, cell therapy or gene therapy, either way, they need software to help them manufacture this thing. Because right now the economics are really out of whack. And some of these therapies cost $500,000 or $1 million or more for a dose. And that is unfortunately either inaccessible or a pretty big burden on different, whether it's insurance providers or the government, et cetera.
Most people can't afford that. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
and
somebody's bearing that cost.
Exactly. And so we are working with our customers today to, for example, take that 110 days I was talking about and reduce it down to 25. And not only that, take the cost of this thing and reduce it down by 40% or more. And we think together we can make the economics of this space not only viable, but most importantly, unlock the category even further. Because I do believe in a future world in which therapies are personalized, unique to us, but they also have to be something that's economically viable, that that it doesn't put a strain on our system, that doesn't put a strain on individuals financially, and maybe this is still that naive
planet as well. Yes.
And maybe this is still that naive software engineering husband 10 years later, but I just believe that software can really help in this.
What was the thing you created? What did the software do? What was the first product? I'm sure there's been
there's been quite an evolution.
Yes.
Because right now we are really, really deep in agentic AI. And so funny enough though, where this whole conversation started, you asked a simple question, which was, what hasn't changed since that time in the Rising Tide Community Business Academy at the basement of the Capital One building?
Yeah.
What hasn't changed is going into that CBA, I was, if you really think about it, I was trying to create a service that was very self-centric in many ways. Like, I don't want to have to do my own, groceries. I don't want to have to pick up my own laundry, whatever. Like, I want someone to do this for me.
You wanted convenience for you.
I wanted convenience for myself.
Okay.
And then, but that evolved. That evolved. And I think when I look back, there was something that changed in me at that time that wanted to have more of a servant-led type of approach that helped empower others and helped support others. And that's this common thread, because now at Apprentice, we named it Apprentice. The name of the company is built around this core concept. And 10 years ago, before the advent of what we now call AI, there were different types of AIs at the time, which we won't get into. But at the time, I had this belief that whatever the next incarnation of AI was going to be, or whether it was AI or some type of smart system, we started with augmented reality because I thought that was another key area too. Yeah. No matter what this next phase shift was.
Using Google Glasses.
That's right, Google Glass, other types of smart glasses. Whatever that phase shift was, which 10 years later now we are in the phase shift.
We're in it.
I believe that humans needed to work with some intelligent machine to create an outcome that neither human nor machine alone can do. And I wanted to hold on to that thesis through everything. And it comes back to CBA. After CBA, I wanted to create apps to help other entrepreneurs. I wanted to, empower others through Main Street Gov, which never even got off the ground, which I completely forgot about. Which now at Apprentice, we don't want to replace the operators. We want to empower them to make smarter, faster, better, cheaper decisions to ultimately, in our case, impact the patient. Yeah. And so Apprentice, this name started from my dad, who he passed last year, but he was an electrician. And he would always talk about these apprentices that he'd work with, that he'd talk about them in such a way that not only was it beneficial to the apprentice because they got to learn from a very senior electrician, a very senior tradesman, but it made him better too. Yeah. And there was this beautiful, symbiotic relationship between the two of them that together they created output that was just better. And so the whole thesis of Apprentice in my world, which now interestingly we're starting to bridge past life sciences and we're looking at all manufacturing now, everything that's made everywhere or anything.
Wow.
And so the business has started to evolve again. Yeah. But this core thesis, this belief system that is so fundamentally rooted in me that humans, I don't want to totally get rid of them. I want them to just work with tools that can make them better, faster, smarter, cheaper, and in many ways have a higher quality of life. Because it's not a fun quality of life to flip through a 200-page paper binder and feel the pressure that if you make a mistake, this is impacting a patient, someone who really needs it. Yeah. And in the personalized medicine world, the level of severity that these people feel is even higher because they know if they lose a batch, it's one-to-one with a patient.
Yeah.
They don't lose a batch, they lose a patient.
Yeah.
And that level of pressure is just such a high and brooding thing that we want this software to make humans better, not replace them, make them better. And hence Apprentice, hence everything we've done now. But that's the common thread, that's the story, that's...
And I'm so glad you went back to that because it's also the thing that had always struck me and I've always held on to from, our 15 years ago and then many years of, conversing all the way to now having you on the board of Rising Tide, which I'm so excited about because
So am I.
The navigating the greatest migration is what I'm calling it, is going to require thinkers and doers who can bridge really and seemingly entire worlds. And what I appreciated when you shifted over to Apprentice.io, one of the things that really struck me was that it wasn't just about the end product and the thing that you're solving for, but it's also about a process. And that process, and I remember you first explaining it to me when I was like, pharma, like why pharma? That's such a strange, you're like, but think about it, like really complex machinery. And I can very readily imagine that there's a lot of complex machinery to make drugs and therapeutics. And then you're like, even a janitor could participate. Like if there's something going on with that complex machinery and you needed it fixed, do you fly in your, special scientist and expert from Germany? Or can you actually have an interface where that expertise could work with anybody who is in that area? As long as they have hands, they literally could augment their, expertise to be able to intervene. And I remember just being like, that is such a clear and beautiful vision of participation, because presumably lay people who don't understand programming or who are not expert coders or technicians in a certain sense could participate in this case in making life-saving drugs. So I could be a janitor and have a primary role, an important role in being able to participate in the saving of a life. And I think that part about our humanity, that we want to participate, that we're like on this planet and we have all the gifts and challenges and opportunities we've been given. And I think that being in the game and participating and being part of something bigger than yourself is one of the most exciting things and important things. And to the extent that entrepreneurs are not just thinking about the end product, like the what, the convenience, but rather the process, saying, does this process enable more and more beautiful participation by people who otherwise wouldn't be a part of a process? And so I loved it when you named it Apprentice. It really was just like, Apprentice.io, yes, let's go. Because that apprenticing too, like to your point about your dad, my stepdad who raised me in this country, like when I hear him reflect on his career, the thing that he constantly goes back to is the impact that he had on the lives of others. Those that he either trained or coached or supported in some way, and looking at where they're at is the thing that gives him so much energy and joy. And so sometimes I feel like in this world that we're living in, when we talk about work, when we talk about the future, we miss that one of our primary roles and really centers of joy as humans is to be able to expand the participatory playbook and to enable others to learn whatever it is that we know or would like to impart, be it wisdom, be it a way to do something. There is a deep joy around that. And so I'm so happy to be able to tell you this on camera too, because it has meant a lot to me and has given me an imagination for how tech and technologists could really evolve and partner with those who don't see themselves as primarily technologists. Yeah.
Well, thank you. First off, too kind.
No, but it's the truth. Like you've actually walked it. I'm not telling you something. I'm just re-articulating for you what the impact of what you've done and how you've named it and the process that I've seen you go through as a person and as a leader and as a creator.
Well, thank you, because that is the best part of the job, bar none.
Yeah.
Right, to be able to see what impact the software has had on not just the company, right? Because of course, the company has a real impact of deploying this software, it's tech, right? They can produce more product safely with higher quality at a cheaper price, but it's the operators, it's the engineers, it's the scientists who use this to help facilitate their mission in life, which is, I want to either invent, I want to manufacture, I want to produce, I want to ensure the quality is what it needs to be, ultimately to help drive humanity forward.
Yeah.
And being one very, very, very small part of all of that, we're just software. We're not the actual people. But to use software to help enable those people achieve their mission and their outcome, to me, that's the coolest part. Unfortunately, it's funny because that story I did tell you that we hope that even the janitor can step in, that ran into reality.
Tell me.
Yeah, so in life sciences, everyone has to be trained at different levels, and so we couldn't get the janitor on the floor. But we can get a trained operator who maybe doesn't have the expertise to perform this troubleshooting or work with this equipment. And then we did bring in the person from Germany to help work with them remotely using augmented reality and all this other fun stuff to help achieve it. So, but what's interesting though, why I'm bringing that example up is what we've learned through the years is that there's this bridge between vision, the software, and then the reality of working within these complex, regulated environments. And I think as we think about the next evolution of all of this, which is now not just augmented reality, it's not just really advanced software, which is now AI, agentic AI, and AI that can make decisions, well, then those same learnings of recognizing that, well, yeah, I wanted the janitor to be able to step in or the maintenance individual, but there's just realities to what can or cannot happen. But at the same time, if we find the right person and empower the right person, well then, yeah, these tools are magical. So it's just really interesting, you know, what's evolved all these years. But at the end of the day, the mission-driven focus is what not only empowers me and keeps me energized, but my whole team, my whole company, because we are a group of people who are, you know, aligned and motivated and driven by this mission to help our customers have an impact on, in our case, patients around the world.
Yeah. Now, we're at a fork in our conversation, and I'm like debating which way that we're going to go, but I think we're going to have to cover both. There is the part that is around the future of work, which you and I are in constant conversation around and thinking and dreaming about what it could be in the context of generative AI and agentic AI and this more decisional role technologies can play and are playing increasingly and with exponential impact. So there's that route, and then there's the other route, which is like entrepreneurs, business owners, creators, who are both birthing their companies or founding their companies in this context, right? And what it looks like for them to engage with these technologies that are available, how to shift and sift through the noise to get to the signal. So there are, I think, those are the two paths. So there's essentially, we'll call it the future of entrepreneurship, and then there is the future of work. I want to spend a little bit of time on the future of work so that we can spend more of our time on the entrepreneur side, because I'm biased. I like entrepreneurs, and we've been working with entrepreneurs for all of these years. On the future of work part, so there's a part of the imagination that says, now with all of the decisional capabilities that are being built into AI systems, it's not even about whether the maintenance person or the janitor or the trained associate or someone who's working in the system. You can actually unbundle. A friend of mine and he's written a great paper on unbundling. You can unbundle so many of the roles such that it's questionable whether you need many of the humans in the chain of value creation within a team even, and that one person, maybe like a couple of people, can do what 20 people used to need to do. So how do we think about that? And I think, being not being distracted by the ways in which, does this mean jobs will be, not replaced, and AI will dislocate workers, the vast majority of workers, and so then there's like a very doom and gloom vision of where we might be, especially given everything we've said about participation, how important it is for humans. And then there's the, new jobs will be created. We just can't see them now.
Yeah.
I want to land somewhere in the nuanced middle there, where we can, acknowledge, maybe the roles will definitely not need to be there, like can't be there, if you have all of this. So, what is your point of view on what is really like playing out right now, and what you see playing out in the next, like even 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time thinking about this because we and what we've created sits in manufacturing. Manufacturing, if you think about what is an economy, it's kind of goods and services, and another way to think about it is white collar, blue collar type thing. But on our world, we touch physical things. That's the best way to think about it. So our software, we're in the physical world, we touch physical things, our software is used to create physical things. And there are thousands and thousands and tens of thousands, millions of people that work in this world within manufacturing. I wish I had the exact statistic, at the top of my head, but there's a lot of people. Yeah. And if I am developing software that's going to impact those millions of people, and it's going to have some form of an impact on either what they're doing or their role, which their role then supports not only themselves, but potentially their family, their friends, has an impact on their community. Yeah. There are these major downstream effects of a job.
Yeah,
and
huge.
And the definition of a job and the dignity associated with it, the impact that has on both the person, their family, their community, that weighs on me a lot, especially if we are developing software for manufacturing. And we are developing agentic AI software for manufacturing. And so I've had to spend a lot of time thinking about, how is this going to impact people? What does it mean? What story am I telling our customers so that they ultimately can decide how to use our software to make decisions in their businesses? Because I'm not, on my side of the table, I'm not the one who has the ultimate hiring or firing decision on, whether or not someone in manufacturing stays in a job, unfortunately loses a job, has a job change. Like that's not I don't have that power, but I do have the influence through the software, which ultimately is mimicking the workflows on what these people may or may not be doing. And so there's a real burden there. And I don't mean that to say, I believe that, what I do is so important that I'm burdened. No, if I'm going to create something,
it's just responsible.
Yeah, it's a responsibility. Yeah. It's not a burden, it's a responsibility to feel that if I create something, that I am thinking through to the best of my ability and with some clear mind and spirit to create something that I at least generally have an idea of what the impact's going to be.
Yeah, or the unintended consequences. You can't really
can't
predict them.
But at least I need to understand, because my customers also are trying to figure out, what does this technology mean? How do we apply it? Yeah. And then what decisions do they make? Yeah. So with that said, what does this new agentic AI software do in manufacturing? So in manufacturing, our vision for all of this is that the AI agents can now do what's called keep a human in the loop at all times. Yeah. We've taken a very much human-centric approach to this, where we're not trying to say, hey, these AIs are just going to run amok and just fire half your staff and just replace them with AI. That is not only do I not believe that, and the technology is not capable of that, but I do believe that, especially in our world, humans have to be in the loop. But these agents can start to do things and create a level of force multiplication that the human alone couldn't do. So let me give some examples. So there's different parts of the manufacturing process. Step A is just defining the process. What do you do in manufacturing? Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Capture this data, work with that equipment, whatever. Right now, it's all done by hand. They're typing each step out. They're deciding which input or output. The material is already predefined for them, but basically they're designing their process and they're typing it all by hand. Think of it as a really, 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 really fancy word processor or a Word doc, right? That's what our software does initially to create manufacturing process. So instead of those people typing by hand and spending weeks developing the process, instead the agents can take either an existing paper process, maybe they did develop it in Microsoft Word, throw it up into the software, automatically digitizes it, ready to roll. The other is they can ask prompts of the tool, which then the agent will define a process for them based on that prompt. There's supervisory agents, which we can get into, that actually check the work of the other agents. So we always have this, dichotomy at play where they're conflicting, they're adversarial with each other. But then the human, ultimately, they get a result, and then the human can review the result, either accept or reject what the AI created. So in this case, all that the agent is doing is it's taking a process which used to be weeks worth of content creation, and they're cutting it down to hours, if not less, depending on the process.
Huge, yep.
And so what does that do for that person? Now we're localizing it. So say you are a scientist, which often that is who our end user is, who is developing this process. That one scientist who's incredibly gifted, incredibly skilled, incredibly educated, instead of spending weeks of time just typing, they instead, what I really believe this, instead of just typing, they can spend their time looking at the process and saying, steps 17 through 24, I think we can maybe do it a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think maybe, we should use this approach versus that approach, or this process or that process, or this safety control versus this quality control. My hope for this technology is that humans can spend their time on what they're really good at, which is the ingenuity, the creativity, and the magic of not typing the process, but defining it, improving it, changing it, and really doing what humans are great at, which is this level of creativity, ingenuity, whatever it is, and they can go do that instead.
Yeah.
Versus sitting there for 3 weeks just typing something into a piece of software. I just don't think that's super exciting. And I have some other examples too. That's like the simplest, basic one. Just
now let me
content faster.
Let me drop in a couple of things there because I think that is really interesting and spot on. And one of the things that I think about when I think about humans, and we have a lot of assumptions about what we're good at. And when I think about how the role of being a human in that process shifts from like typing and to really reviewing, whether it's reviewing visual data that is being generated for you and then trying to spot the errors or where there might be a different conclusion, or reading and absorbing a ton of content that is being generated. I'm sure you might be having this experience with just the LLMs, right? You can ask anything you want and then you'll get 6 different versions in 6 seconds, and you're like, why can't I absorb this information as fast as the GPT's generated it, right? Like, but because you're human, it's gonna take whatever it's gonna take, even speed reading or whatever. And so it makes me wonder about how well we understand what humans are good at. And, and there are just, like for me, for example, I like doing many tasks like, at the same time. It's like probably not the best, but like I gain my greatest focus when I know I can divert for a few minutes to do something else that actually unlocks more capacity in me than if you stuck me in a room and said, spin this gold, like read this document for the next 48 hours. My focus will probably deteriorate very quickly than if you gave me like 6 other things that I can also touch, but then I can hone in and focus on certain things. So there is a part of me that wonders how much thinking is going on about how humans currently work and their practices, and how when we unbundle some of those things and say, oh, AI is good at this, you just focus on the creative part, do we really know whether that's actually the thing that humans are good at? Or will we see deterioration in their ability to either absorb content or actually be focused in that curatorial editing function? How do we design for humans based on what we understand about, at least at current pace, like what we understand about how humans work? Obviously the future is shifting and changing, and the humans that are coming, 10 years from now, like your little humans and my little humans, may have vastly different responses based on what they've experienced. But I wonder what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, so let's use that same use case, and then I have some others, because there is now on the negative side, there's a concern that humans can rely too much on the tool to generate this content,
And
review it, and then move on.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that these systems are not, it's called deterministic versus probabilistic. They are not perfect.
No.
They're not, and they're probabilistic by nature. What does that mean? It means that they are making some statistical estimate of what the next token or series of tokens is, and that inevitably, can be messy. It could be a little bit fuzzy, let's say, in its logic. It's not purely black and white. And so if you treat it as black and white, well, yeah, there can be instances where you didn't actually read steps 24 through 38 or whatever.
Yeah.
And turns out those were like really important.
Yes.
And so that's where this next kind of piece of responsibility comes in for us, the people that are like creating some of this, is this next series around simulation. And so it's just like with the human typing a lot.
Yeah.
I also don't think the human is great at reviewing a lot. And
I
reviewing
agree.
volumes. And it's just, it's mind numbing.
Yes.
It's lower value work. And it comes back to like, well then, if we're just gonna throw more at the human in the loop, well, that's also kind of bad too.
Yeah.
Because basically we're shifting it from one issue, which is typing a lot, to another issue, which is reviewing, but not really reviewing a lot. And so that's the next thing that we had to focus on, because now what we're doing is, in our world, it's called review by exception. But basically that means is, we're gonna go at the end of the process now. So I made a batch of drugs, cool. But along the way, lots of things happened. Some things major, some things minor, some things you're not really sure yet.
Yeah.
But there are all these things called exceptions that come up. Just think of them as little things that just weren't exactly right, but weren't necessarily something that impacted quality, or maybe you don't know. You don't know what it is. You just know something wasn't exactly right. So anyway, at the end of these batches, hundreds, if not thousands, of these exceptions sometimes come up. Hopefully not thousands, but there's a lot of exceptions that come up during the end of these runs. And right now, a human has to go through and read every single one by one by one by one. And not only does that take an extraordinary amount of time, but they get review fatigue. And so that same approach, the industry has come up with what they call review by exception, which is you grade different exceptions in different ways, and you have the human focus on the really gnarly ones, or the ones that could have an impact on patient safety or whatever it is. So we're taking that same concept of review by exception, because if we are generating things that we say you should look at, you should really look at. And so coming back to now that authoring example, we're creating content. We created a simulation where we simulate the manufacturing process with the AI, and the AI is looking at itself, and that adversarial relationship I was mentioning, that's where these agents argue with each other and try to spot issues, because the agents are really good at reviewing lots of stuff and identifying where things are obviously wrong. And so I think over time this will get better, but the intention is, when something is surfaced to the human to go review, it's not hundreds of things or thousands of things, but it's a very focused set of things that if the AI is telling you to go take a look, you should probably go take a look. And so the thinking is, when the AI generates so much more, you can't just throw a bunch of stuff in front of a human. You got to focus their effort and energy so that magic of what a human is really good at, the creativity for steps 17 through 24 in my example, or these exceptions which just don't look right, but we're not sure and we don't want to impact patient safety, have the human really dig into those areas and be extraordinary and exceptional at it. And then everything else, there will be some varying levels of automation over time, but even that I have an opinion on too, which we can touch on even more. But like, those are two simple examples, which is just like content creation and content review. And then where does the human fit? The human still fits, they're just reviewing a focused area, not everything.
So bringing it home and also using that as our kind of jumping off point into the future of entrepreneurship. Let's imagine that the humans we're talking about, because we believe in relationships and proximity, are our little humans. What are your kids' names?
I'm not going to say publicly.
Okay. Well, we'll give them a name.
Yeah, we'll give them a name.
We'll give them a name. Our little humans. We'll call them our little humans.
Yeah.
So our little humans, fast forward like 10 years from now, are getting ready to decide on their career. They're hanging out at the apartment, having hopefully graduated from some institutions. It's going to be online, but it may be hopefully on campus with other humans that they're engaging with and debating with. And then they've arrived home, and you're their dad, and they're like, hey, help me make sense of it. I want to go into manufacturing. Because you've built companies in manufacturing. At this point, it's companies. Because 10 years from now,
I'm not going to sit on a beach. It's not happening.
And, knowing you and knowing myself too, I don't think the beach is. We'll go visit.
Future.
We'll go visit. Yeah.
2 weeks a year.
We won't send the humanoids to the beach. No. That. So they're at home, and I imagine that you've created some kind of a digital interface for them to figure out where they might want to land in manufacturing. You've instructed your AI, Jarvis, create this so that my child could actually pick their path. So there is a couple of thoughts I have on this, which is would you put entrepreneurship on that choice set? If you're, mapping out career pathways in manufacturing, and given kind of the lens that you have into where manufacturing is poised, and including you and your significant other, when you think about this is what I don't know if you'd bias the AI. I would bias the AI to lead them towards this part of manufacturing as opposed to this other part. So what are some of the considerations that you would put in the choice set for your child's future?
Yeah, so this comes back to
making it very personal.
No, but
because they're gonna come back.
They will. Like, Dad,
did you automate all the roles
there's no jobs anymore, Dad? And then they call me a boomer, and then the whole thing it just
or they're like, you're the human in the loop. They're like, wait, that part of the loop, why? So
Well, it comes back to, collectively. I know we brought it really micro. We brought it down to creating manufacturing content, reviewing manufacturing content. We didn't talk about the thing in the middle, which is actually manufacturing, like the actual process itself of making something.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen there, because that's really where a bulk of the jobs are. And so just in my opinion, and I use the word opinion because we don't know yet what the future is going to look like. And I believe in a very optimistic version of this. I think people are coming to the realization that these tools are very complementary and supportive, but you still need human beings to make decisions, to think creatively, to come up with the brilliance of what humans are really good at. And I just believe that the number of people in these roles will actually increase because over time the output of these companies will also increase with it.
Significantly. You would think if it's working.
Yeah, because here's where it gets interesting. Where it gets interesting is that if manufacturing can get to a level of efficiency, whether that is through robotics, whether that is through humans working in these spaces with the robots or the AI, whatever it ends up being, and I can dig into that more if we want to go down that tangent, but ultimately the throughput of these facilities is going to explode. And if the throughput explodes, the cost of goods will go down. And if the cost of goods go down, you get to this world in which there is the potential outcome of, if you're a Star Trek fan, there's this concept of like a proto-post-scarcity society where basically, anyone can have access to anything. I think I'm not going to see that in my lifetime per se, but I do think that these capabilities will eventually be deflationary and will lower the cost of goods to a point in which the access to those goods is higher, thereby more humans have access to more goods. And if more humans have access to more goods, well then, in theory, more goods will be demanded. And if more goods are demanded, there's more need for manufacturing and manufacturing capacity. So that's my optimistic view of the world. It was basically, hey, manufacturing can get more advanced, We're still going to need plenty and plenty more people to go do that. If it becomes more advanced, the price of these goods will go down. If they go down, they have access to larger markets. Yes, we take for granted here in the United States that we have access to things, but I travel a lot. And we can even talk about, on the personal side, my travel ambitions and goals.
Yes.
I'm up to country 41 on path to 50 countries. Yeah, I'm up to 41. I got 42 coming up in 2 months.
Up. Okay.
But the more and more I travel the world, the more and more I recognize that, no, the rest of the world is not like the United States. No. And there's a certain standard of living, standard of access to things, and so much of the barrier is due to the cost of different goods. And I just, maybe I'm naive, but I don't think I am. It's just that as manufacturing capacity increases and the cost of goods goes down, access will be higher for everyone. If access is higher for everyone, in theory, we may get higher levels of consumption than we have today. If we have higher levels of consumption, then yeah, I just do believe that naturally we're going to need more people to fill these roles, to grow in manufacturing, and to ultimately create new versions of all of this. So what I tell my daughters is that there is plenty and plenty and plenty more to be innovated on within manufacturing. But through that innovation, you can have an extraordinarily high impact on society, because you're not just creating something for someone to buy, you're creating innovation that will lower the barrier for someone to access something, to provide joy, to provide function, to provide, in life sciences, something life-saving. It's no longer $1 million a dose, it's $10 a dose.
Yeah.
And it's that type of world in which we need way, way, way more people to be able to innovate in that space to get us to that future.
So, great. Let me ask a couple of things to deepen that perspective, because my kids and I, we've the most recent thing that we've watched is a documentary called Beyond Plastics on microplastics.
Yep.
And my kids were depressed. They were like, stop making all this plastic stuff. It's like microplastics are in everything. They're in placenta, they're in our bodies, they're in our eyeballs, they're in everything, people. What are we gonna do? And when complemented with the giant amounts of crap that we've manufactured and where that is going. I think the beaches of Dominican Republic, Ghana, astoundingly terrifying in terms of the amount of clothes and things that have been sent there. They can't do anything with them. It's way beyond their capacity to consume. They don't have a need for it, and there's no way to, where do you put it? You can't send it to space. Not yet. But so there is this issue of, yes, we can exponentiate our manufacturing capacities, but there is the carrying capacity of the planet, and there is the waste, generation and issues like microplastics. What do we do with that, and what does responsible manufacturing look like, right? And so I'm curious, what your point of view is, especially having traveled so much, and I don't know you to be a person who likes things for the sake of having things. You're a light, and you work so much too. What's your vision for manufacturing that doesn't destroy the planet, that doesn't just, yes? Yeah, so
consumerism has a lot of negative byproduct. And when we think of manufacturing, I hope when people think about this, they don't have in their mind that, my vision, or I think the company's vision, is that
plastic spoons for everybody.
And that manufacturing is just going to
every child in the world is going to have 6 spoons.
Exactly. It's more about access to things that are actually transformative in some way. And when we use the word manufacturing touches everything. Yes, I think when most people think of manufacturing, they think of manufacturing things that you buy on Amazon. And that is predominantly when most people think of consumerism, they think of going on Amazon and buying a bunch of stuff. And right now it's $20, maybe it'll be $10 or $2 or whatever. That's not what I think about what advanced manufacturing will help enable. It's all of the other stuff that right now is extraordinarily cost prohibitive. Obviously, I am very, very, very focused on therapeutics, of which right now, it's not that these companies just want to throw any price under the sun in front of the consumer saying, haha, I got them to pay this money. It's The costs associated with not only drug development, which is $1.8 billion to get a drug to market, but also it's what happens after, which is everything associated with manufacturing in my world.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of our Future Tide conversation with Angelo Stracquatanio. We hope his early journey of innovation and purpose offers a moment of reflection and inspiration. In part 2, we'll continue exploring how Angelo scaled Apprentice.io and navigated major challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, while staying true to his mission. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay connected with us at risingtidecapital.org and future.risingtidecapital.org for more updates. Future Tide Conversations is powered by Rising Tide Capital, a 501c3 nonprofit. Our mission and this podcast are made possible by supporters like you.